I am Alex Lawson, filling in for Thom Hartmann, and I am really pleased to be here, and I am extremely pleased to bring my friend and colleague and just all-around awesome guy, policy expert, Jon Bauman. You might know him from the rock and roll supergroup Sha-Na-Na. I know him mainly from our amazing hands-off Medicare and Medicaid tour. And I think some of the listeners and viewers of Thom Hartmann know you from that as well. We had two people who came to the event we did in Maine, actually found out about it on this show. So Jon Bauman, thank you for joining us on the Thom Hartmann program.
And you know the message, Alex Lawson. Alex Lawson, bum 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 dang 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 ding dong ding, hands off Medicare.
That is exactly the message.
That's the message.
So, Jon, I spent the first hour pontificating and talking with callers about what's actually happening this week, where the Republicans are going to unveil their very secret, their state secret level plan for our health care. I was pointing out that usually if something's really good for you, they don't keep it secret from you. And, you know, this Wednesday, we're actually going to get our first look at it. And, you know, why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit about what you and I are doing on our hands-off Medicare and Medicaid tour. And you know, now we're going to know, starting Wednesday, we're going to absolutely know exactly what's in the bill. But we've been traveling around for a while now with our strategy. So lay it out for the listeners what it is that we're doing.
And of course, as you know, Alex, you're the creator of the Hands Off Medicare and Medicaid tour and the strategy that we're pursuing, which is to find 3 Republican senators who will vote against any reconciliation bill that contains any cuts in Medicare and Medicaid in it. And in order, the purpose of this strategy, obviously, is to get the Republican number under 50 to where we would need a 60-40 vote in the Senate. This is something we go around and explain to everybody, to all the activists that we encounter in states that are likely to have the kind of Republican senator who understands how important it is not to cut Medicare or Medicaid. So we have so far been to Maine. We went to Arizona. We're about to go to Nevada. We may very well go to Alaska. There's been some good kind of noise coming out of there from Senator Murkowski. And we're targeting the senators who are most likely, we think, to understand that no one, and you always say at the beginning of your excellent talk, no one voted in this last election to destroy Medicare or Medicaid. No one.
So, Jon, the action, you know, the reconciliation process will allow the Republicans in the Senate to just use a simple majority to pass something.
Right.
And so if we find 3 Republicans in the Senate, that can actually stop the bill cold in its tracks.
Right, and that's the purpose, and that's the idea, and you know, this is while the lunacy is going on. Let's look at the great big picture, because obviously the events of the weekend, you know, have opened a lot of eyes and turned a lot of heads in this country. But we have to be very careful while people are looking at this sort of, oh, let's just charge an ex-president with a monumental crime with nothing to back it up, no evidence whatsoever to back it up. Let's just say this. So while we're distracted by this kind of stuff, we have to really, really, really stay focused and make sure that tremendous amounts of damage are not done to the population of this country by Congress, and potentially this president signing something that Congress, you know, hands him. Because we're distracted by everything else. We have got to stay focused and make sure that none of these horribly damaging, ruinous proposals actually pass and get implemented into law.
So since we did our first event in January, actually, before even the inauguration, the Congress had already reconvened.
Right.
But we've been watching this really closely. Every iteration, and it is frustrating to activists often when we go out and talk, and they're like, well, give me the bill number or tell me exactly what's in there. And we're like, we can't tell you exactly what's in there.
Right. Our most frequently asked question. And give me the bill number. What's the bill? What does it say? What is it? And we're making the point right here, which is a very important point for people to internalize, that we are trying to stay ahead of the curve on this. We are going to have to act very fast when this stuff finally does come out. When something finally does come out on Wednesday, we'll have something concrete finally. But what we have done, what we put ourselves in the position to do, is to activate the activists who have been ringing Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski's and Dean Heller's phones all this while. We will be able to activate them to go further once something is on the table. That's why we had to stay ahead of this. Once the thing comes down, if we're starting to organize right then, it's too late.
Exactly. I also want to point out, and I'm not trying to be a rose-colored glass-wearing optimist here, but it's just honest that all the heat, all the calls, all the town halls, it's working.
It's working.
When we started in January, and you basically have to read everything that these guys say, and you pick out, like we watched Tom Price and literally everything he says, Mick Mulvaney, Paul Ryan.
Today.
And today they're saying, oh, well, we've got to convince Donald Trump to get back to cutting Medicare and Social Security. But in January, they were pretty open about the fact that they were going to come at Medicare as hard as possible. And Tom Price said in the first 7 months of this year, they were going to privatize it. They were going to destroy Medicare for everybody, right? They lie and say they're going to hold some people harmless, which is impossible. If you destroy Medicare for some, you destroy it for everybody. But now I am optimistic that what we're going to see in the bill on Wednesday, while it's going to be terrible, it's going to hurt real people. It will lead to the death of people. It is going to be receded from where they were talking in January because of the heat and the pressure that the people have brought to bear on it. I mean, is that similar to what you're seeing?
Yes, and make no mistake about it, everybody who's listening to us. The reason that Alex and I are taking the time, trouble, and expense to run around all over the country, going to the states where we think we're going to find some Republican senators who will vote against any reconciliation bill that cuts Medicare or Medicaid, is because only their own constituents really can bring this message to them. We are activating activists in every state where we think we really have a good shot to pound on the phones in that state, go to the offices in that state, and it can really only be done from the ground in those states, which is not to say that we want everybody else to sit on their hands and do nothing, but it is to say that constituents, those of you who are in red states, purple states, who have senators that you think may be, or even if you don't think that they may be receptive to this kinds of message and that they really are interested in just cutting taxes for their rich donors and letting everybody else's life go to hell, show up, pound on their phones. Phone calls are the best. Showing up at the offices is the other thing that's great. But this is why we're taking the time and trouble to do this nationwide. And you can see how the town halls are working. Alex, as you know, I'm the most cockeyed optimist probably of all. I'm the guy who comes in. I'm the guy who comes in at the end of the day and says, to everyone who might be listening to this show, progressive thought always wins in the end. Just think about it. The slaves are free. Women can vote. We have gay marriage. There is not an issue that gets on the table that we don't win ultimately. It's just a matter of how long it takes. So, when it comes to cockeyed optimism, you and I are two of the best, but we do try to be activists and actually implement our optimistic beliefs for the country.
And it is working, and our strategy is working. And our top three targets, just to state them again, and then we're going to go to break. And then I hope we can take some callers. John and I will take some callers, especially anyone in our, we're going to Nevada next. Our top 3 targets is Maine, Nevada, and Alaska. So that's Susan Collins, Dean Heller, and Lisa Murkowski. Lisa Murkowski has already put out a statement that's about 3/4 of the way there. She is go ahead.
And Senator Collins was quoted in the Portland newspaper, really a couple of months ago, with a statement that maybe put her, what do you think, Alex, half the way there, something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
half the way.
It's so Susan Collins was at expressing serious reservations or something like that, and Lisa Murkowski was at the I will not do this without consulting with experts in the state as to the effect of block granting or getting rid of the Medicaid expansion. So I expect on Wednesday what we are likely to see is some a bone thrown to the Republican senators. It's a bribe. They're going to try to buy off the senators who are in Medicaid expansion states by saying that they're going to not do that destruction for a few years. And I would wager that the few years is until after the midterms, which is a big thing for these senators. So, and
you did notice, Alex, that this morning, 2 states that have Medicaid expansion actually started making noise, or that don't have, started making noises about wanting it. So that was interesting too. A couple of interesting things came out today. Dave Weigel's article about Mulvaney. Mulvaney and Price, for those of you, I know you got to go to break, so we can pick this up on the other side. But the so-called president, I call him that after he called the so-called judge a so-called judge, called the judge a so-called judge. The so-called president has said, pretty clearly, and we're going to hold his feet to the fire, that he's not interested in cutting Medicare or Social Security. But then he did go ahead and appoint to the most important positions in his cabinet with regard to these 2 areas, 2 of the worst people who have ever been in Congress, Mick Mulvaney and Tom Price, with lifetime records from the Alliance for Retired Americans approaching 0. 2 very responsible positions. So we already know the so-called president's word isn't necessarily good, but we're going to hold everyone's feet to the fire.
And I'm going to go to break here, but I will also add, the president also said Medicaid. He said Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And he said that. He said he wasn't going to cut them. But that is exactly what they're going to do, and we're going to see it on Wednesday. And once we have it, once we have the actual contours, it's going to make it so much easier to fight back. You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be right back after this.